You might be aware that speedrunning takes dedication and consistency. In order to achieve top times in certain games, gamers rack up hundreds to thousands of hours of playtime. Perfecting strategies is required to achieve these top times, since they take an enormous amount of practice. But what if I told you there were gamers that invest just as much time as standard speedrunners, but in an effort to beat a game blindfolded? Most of us know the conventional way to play a game is to have the controller in your hand and to use your eyes. However, some of you might have watched Summoning Salt's The History of Blindfolded Punch-Out and are aware that blindfolded speedrunning exists. Or you might have seen Easyscape's collection of videos documenting the best moments of blindfolded speedruns. There's a group of people that make this happen, and today, I would like you to meet the Blindfolded Brotherhood, a community of speedrunning enthusiasts whose primary objective is to complete games blindfolded. They've compiled an entire spreadsheet which lists as many recorded blindfolded runs and playthroughs as possible. There are two names that appear quite frequently, Bubzia and Katun24. They've completed many games such as Super Mario 64, Donkey Kong Country 2, and The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, just to name a few. I wanted to learn more, so I contacted them through Discord, and I will be sharing what they had to say. I will be highlighting the runners, discussing their entire process, and much more. So sit back and relax, this is the Experts of Blindfolded Speedruns. First, let's talk about Bub Xia. He currently has 27 of the best times across various games and categories. When I asked him how he got into the blindfolded scene, he said it was because of Runner Guy 2489's blindfolded 100% run of The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. He watched a lot of the challenge, and the escape sequence struck him as fascinating. For those unaware, the escape sequence involves escorting Zelda from the top of Ganondorf's castle to the entrance. The sequence is difficult in the fact that you are bound to an in-game timer of 3 minutes, as well as RNG from falling rocks that can damage you. The run was a very unique and impressive achievement. This was at the end of 2015, and he said, quote, "I thought you would have to be a god gamer to achieve something like this." Runner Guy became a big influence not only to Bubzia, but to many in the speedrunning community. In 2017, Bubzia had a lot of free time while attending school, and he was in search of a new hobby. He recalled Runner Guy's speedrun and decided it would be fun to try out the challenge. His general speedrunning experience included Super Mario 64 from a few years prior, and on July 28, 2017, he got his first star blindfolded. He said he realized that you absolutely do not need to be a god gamer, all you need is a good route with strategy. He eventually decided to try and beat the game in one sitting, and he proceeded to focus on routing the 16-star speedrun for a few months. He stated it was a big motivational factor to embark on this project, considering not too many blindfolded speedruns existed at the time. On October 25th, 2017, he completed his first ever blindfolded 16-star speedrun with a time of 3 hours, 11 minutes, and 59 seconds. The hard work paid off, and he would go on to further improve his time. 2 years later, on August 16th, 2019, he achieved a 38-minute and 58-second run.
No, dude, no.
Katoon24 currently has 19 of the best times across various games and categories. In early 2016, he was introduced to speedrunning through the Donkey Kong Country community. He was intrigued by the idea, but quickly realized that grinding the same run over and over without any creative input wasn't his thing. He wanted to play games in ways that hadn't been done before, in such a way that doing the run required excessive strategizing and practice. Then he met Ponk. Ponk was piecing together a blindfolded run of Super Metroid at the time, and he kept telling Katoon about how a full run might be possible for the game. Katoon was inspired to try and do the same, but for Donkey Kong Country 2, a childhood favorite of his. Initially, he was quite overwhelmed, as anyone would be. He slowly found methods that were viable for blindfolded runs, and after a few early levels, he decided to try what seemed an impossible level to complete blindfolded, Screech's Sprint. It's a level where you play as Squawks the parrot, and you have to race an evil parrot to the end. It seemed impossible to complete at the time because there are no safe spots, as there are vines in all directions that will hurt you as you touch them. However, after about 10 hours of practice, he was able to complete the level. This was a huge confidence boost, and he continued to route each subsequent level and boss. Throughout the entire process, a DKC2 speedrunner named Kipples jokingly challenged Katoon to do a 102% blindfolded run instead of any percent. This includes completing the main game, as well as completing all bonus levels, collecting every DK coin, and beating the Lost World. He spent most of his spare time in the summer of 2016 working on the project. In October of that year, he finished the 102% run in just over 16 hours without breaks. After this achievement, he grinded the any percent blindfolded run down to a time of 1 hour and 52 minutes, which included many glitch strategies that the visual speedrun has. After Donkey Kong Country 2, he proceeded to attempt various runs for various reasons. Pangaea Panga completed a blindfolded run of Super Mario World 11 Exit on August 8, 2016. A speedrunner of the game challenged Katoon to try it in 2017. He stated Super Mario World runs were quite stressful since he mainly focused on deathless runs, and every timing mistake usually resulted in a death. This ended up being his most optimized blindfolded run, also due to the short length. On February 10, 2018, the time was pushed to 12 minutes and 25 seconds. He stated that most of his runs have been 2D platformers because he's most familiar with them. However, he has stepped out of his comfort zone to try 3D games. He said Portal was very awkward to run at first, but it was made doable thanks to the controls being converted from analog to digital. Ocarina of Time and Super Mario 64 are games that he was familiar with, and contrary to his expectations, they were easier to run compared to 2D platformers. Over the years, he's met many other blindfolded runners, and they have helped motivate him to complete certain games. The Blindfolded Brotherhood community was founded in late 2016 by Katoon and Ponk. They noticed that there was no community specifically for blindfolded gamers, and instead, blindfolded runners stuck to the communities of their own games to discuss strategies and to notify others of their runs. They found that there was an interest from people who liked blindfolded runs in general, so they unified and created a Discord channel where everyone could share information about their blindfolded runs and those of others. A runner named Parisian Player would soon join the community, and he would be known for his A Link to the Past runs. Bub Xia joined the community in 2017, while the community was still in its roots. Other known speedrunners would join the community, such as Zallard1 and MPAP from Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, and RunnerGuy2489 from The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, just to name a few. The community has been growing steadily since creation, and they have attracted runners from different genres and games to join. Their first goal was to log as many videos of blindfolded runs that existed. They wanted to recognize the effort that these runners made, and in the case of categories that have multiple runners, to recognize their times in a leaderboard format. Their objective is for people to view their runs as proper speedruns, rather than party tricks. When logging blindfolded runs came a few issues that were a bit problematic, such as on a rule set on which runs to include. While an absolute consensus has never been reached, they've decided to separate runs into two main categories: complete runs and partially blindfolded runs. Partially blindfolded runs generally include runners that might take breaks, and during this time they will take their blindfold off. The community feels that endurance is a main aspect of blindfolded runs. The major rule for complete runs is that outside help, such as non-blindfolded people guiding the blindfolded player through the run, is banned. However, help is minimally allowed for other runs. Verifying whether or not a run is valid, for example a blindfold being transparent or not, is difficult. They strongly encourage runners to livestream their practice sessions and to make their strategies and notes public, to at least show the amount of preparation they've done. Throughout the years, they've mostly contacted blindfolded runners through Twitch and YouTube to join. The runners work in a fairly structured way when strategizing a blindfolded run. First off, they want to be 99% sure that the run is doable at all and in a single session. They play the game casually with caution, theorizing about what types of strategies could be used. Usually, there are a few sections per game that require extra attention, which might involve heavy amounts of RNG, precise timing, or a lack of music and audio. They will watch speedruns for a game, mostly all categories that exist, because there might be techniques used in difficult runs which are safer, compared to different techniques in normal difficulty runs. In the meantime, they'll make some notes about the run and create a basic to-do list. In Bubzia's case, he will proceed to learn the basic speedrun, which includes learning the movement and sometimes executing skips or glitches. Conversely, Katoon never really learns the speedrun before strategizing. He will study the route and tricks of the speedrun in detail, followed by attempts at specific sections. This is when the practice begins. It's essentially figuring out what works and what doesn't. If something doesn't work, it becomes the main priority to fix that particular section. Their basic to-do list eventually grows to contain all of the strategies in the run. Take for example Katoon's document on Celeste. He uses his own style of notation, which looks like something out of a computer science college course. Joking aside, everything is noted, from inputs, audio cues and number of beats, to anything that can get them from point A to point B safely. They use this notation simply because it's tedious and inefficient to write entire sentences. For example, one of Katoon's notations is J times 2, RO_R_5, L greater than wall. This means jump twice, roll to the right for 5 music beats, then walk left until the wall. Notations like these are slowly remembered in order to complete each section. They will complete segmented runs of the game before running the entire game uninterrupted. From here it's all about getting the muscle memory down and improving. During the entire process, inconsistencies are bound to occur. When learning Donkey Kong Country 2, Katoon initially used sound effects such as those from enemies and tried to simply memorize the stage layouts of the first few levels. This is the type of strategizing he's tried to avoid. Responding to sound effects is generally inconsistent since response times vary, and memorizing stage layouts in great detail is taxing on your memory. One of the strategies the blindfolded community uses is called normalization, which is 100% reliable movement for any level in any game that has a predictable outcome. An example of this is running into a wall or jumping into a barrel in Donkey Kong Country 2. Katoon found that jumping forward while ducking will ensure a fixed distance jump. Similarly, you can roll a fixed distance. In effect, memorizing a run turns out to be memorizing every input, not a stage layout. This is helpful in games like DKC2, where any mistake leads to a death, so having backup strategies are generally useless. Katoon said that 99% of the strategies for all blindfolded runs he's done, 2D or 3D, are either normalized movement, rhythm-based movement, or a combination of the two. Environment memorization can occasionally be helpful in 3D games, but he tries to keep it to a minimum. One type of challenge in blindfolded runs is the camera itself. When Katoon was piecing together Super Mario 64, he noticed the slightest accidental analog stick tilt caused the camera to move into an unpredictable angle. While the GameCube controller's analog stick notches ensure straight movement angles, moving the analog stick from the center into a notch isn't fully normalized, meaning it might move slightly to the left or right as you're moving straight. Pause buffering is a solution to work around the non-normalized analog stick movement. This means neutralizing the analog stick, then pausing and holding the analog stick into a notch, then unpausing. This and similar pause buffer methods turned out to be useful for many 3D games, but also for dealing with strict unnormalized timing. There are games where movement or camera angles usually cannot be normalized, such as Portal, where the camera is normally controlled by the mouse. On top of this, Portal hardly has any rhythmic music. The way they got around this is to use digital controls for camera movement, such as buttons for moving the camera at a fixed speed. Timing the camera rotations is done by holding the shoot button during rotation. This fires shots automatically at a fixed rate. With everything said and done, I was curious how long the entire process is. Katoon shared that it takes roughly 10 hours of theory crafting and a few hours of practice and re-strategizing per 1 hour of gameplay. Linear games such as most 2D platformers tend to be quicker than non-linear games, such as the Zelda series. 3D Zelda games are relatively slow compared to the amount of inputs in a run, as there are many walking sections across vast landscapes, as well as lengthy cutscenes. Bub Xia shared that for his Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 speedruns, it took about 150 hours of strategizing and learning, and around 50 hours of practice. And those weren't short speedruns, as they clocked in at times of over 6 hours each. Shorter games like Wario Land 2, for example, which is a 20-minute run, can take around 24 hours of preparation and practice in total. As for the lengths of runs themselves compared to visual speedruns, it varies greatly per game. The Super Mario World 11 exit glitchless speedrun world record is currently 10 minutes and 40 seconds, while Katoon's blindfolded personal best on the same category is 12 minutes and 25 seconds. On the other hand, the Portal glitchless world record is 15 minutes and 43 seconds, while Katoon's blindfolded run took over 4.5 hours due to the complexity of the strategies where slow camera rotation and normalizations are required for blindfolded runs. When discussing the types of obstacles in the blindfolded process, the first one involves dealing with heavy amounts of RNG. In the Zora diving minigame in Ocarina of Time, the player has to dive for 5 blue rupees in random spots. The trick is to maximize the percentage of the area covered by your hitbox during the dives. In the Mega Man X games, dealing with the boss attack pattern RNG is mostly a matter of overpowering yourself with upgrades and then doing all the boss fights late game while damage boosting through them. Dealing with RNG is about maximizing your chances of success and to reduce risks. In any case, a run with a lot of RNG is not fun to grind as a speedrun. However, if you look at Blindfolded Runs as challenges and not speedruns, then RNG can be looked as a fun puzzle in which you try to work your way around by maximizing your chances or even by manipulating it. A second obstacle are games that require too much precision with timing to be viable, and it's more of a problem if there are longer sections. Precise timing doesn't have to feel precise at all in visual gaming, since performing frame-perfect tricks aren't usually any harder than in visual speedruns, as long as there are audio or music cues that you can anticipate rather than respond to. Indirect inputs, such as movement that rotates a camera, doesn't have to change your character's position, but it may have a big effect when you proceed to move forward. In visual speedruns, you can do all sorts of micro adjustments if your movement is off. In Blindfolded Runs, you have to stick to your strategies, or else everything becomes unpredictable. Racing games are generally non-viable for Blindfolded Runs for this specific reason, on top of them generally having RNG. Thirdly, there are a few factors that can make a blindfolded run much more difficult compared to a visual one. In Katoon's Mega Man X3 run, he was several hours into it when he had to respond to a specific audio cue with a precise set of movements in which there would be one chance to get the trick. He worked out that he was able to get it 60% of the time in practice, and luckily, he succeeded. A related issue is obviously memory load. For a first run, there's always the threat of forgetting a little detail about a strategy without being able to improvise your way around it. This is the challenge of short-term memory. The slightest mistake can have big consequences, while it would never be a problem in a visual run. A good example of this is inventory menuing in RPGs, remembering the items in their respective slots. Also, there are a few factors outside of the game that can be difficult to deal with. Katoon personally likes to complete single session runs, which include no breaks. This can be tough and rather unhealthy for runs longer than 8 hours. He tends to not eat or drink during runs, or use the restroom. This in turn can lead to dehydration, and will inhibit your ability to concentrate, especially towards the end of a run. In these situations, Katoon will try to further optimize and practice strategies to a degree where it won't be uncomfortable or unhealthy for him in the end. Another reason they do not take breaks is because they would be able to peek at notes, and this goes against the foundation of what they're trying to achieve. However, not all runs have to be completed in one sitting. In their document, they include categories for single segment and segmented runs. Environmental factors can play a role too. Katoon tends to do his runs at night to reduce the risk of outside noise distracting him. On top of this, a common concern is to livestream a long run, only to realize afterwards that the stream crashed early in the run. For this reason, there's a Discord voice channel in their community where runners can notify each other in such a case. Otherwise, outside help with the run is banned. Lastly, the largest obstacle in Blindfolded Speedrun is motivation itself. You spend a lot of time preparing your routes and strategies without actually seeing any result. If you practice a game after 100 hours of preparation and nothing works, it can be frustrating. This can also be classified as a general speedrunning problem. When it comes to the runs, tiny mistakes will lose multiple minutes and not just a few seconds like in visual speedruns. For example, there's a specific strategy for Bowser in the Sky in Super Mario 64. The technique includes pause buffering, and there's about a 2 to 3 frame window for the third throw. Each failure results in about a 1 minute and 50 second time loss, so you basically get one chance if you're pursuing an optimized run. A common misconception about blindfolded runs is that you need to be an experienced speedrunner or have an eidetic memory. Bub Xia and Katoon strongly disagree with this. Muscle memory is involved, but it only grows after practicing the strategies made specifically for blindfolded runs, rather than the other way around. During this entire video, I've talked about the entire process of running games blindfolded, as well as the challenges behind them. In this section of the video, I'd like to highlight some of the blindfolded runs that exist. For Bub Xia, he completed the last phase of the Omega Flowey fight in Undertale. I mentioned that counting beats are one of the strategies that blindfolded runners use in games, and Bubzia uses a 127 BPM counting system since the in-game music is too fast. The biggest obstacle is to not drift too far away from the attack button and the health drops that mostly spawn in the middle. Also in blindfolded runs, they are not allowed to use any audible metronomes of any sort, as it's essentially outside help if you think about it. Counting the beats in your head is part of the challenge. Bubzia has crafted together an almost complete Undertale blindfolded speedrun, but he's currently stopped the project because of the difficulty. However, he states he will return to it in the future. I mentioned Runner Guy's 100% Ocarina of Time blindfolded run earlier in the video, and it still remains impressive to this day. His preparations seem minimal, and he was able to complete it mostly due to his general knowledge of the game and speedrunning experience. Like I stated earlier, runs can be extremely exhausting past the 8-hour threshold, and concentration begins to decrease very rapidly. The only thing you can think of is never wanting to do the run again. As I've mentioned plenty of times throughout this video, Katoon's 16-hour run of DKC2 102% still remains widely impressive. Bubzia also completed a 10-hour run of Nier Automata E-Ending.
What the fuck? Where is this piece of shit? Okay. Boom! Shit! Something! No! Choked! Choked something, man.
Katoon completed a sub 3-minute run of The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past any percent, and he did it on his first try. And for my personal favorite, on September 8th, 2019, Katoon reached a new personal best of 2 hours, 18 minutes, and 42 seconds in the 70-star category of Super Mario 64.
I felt good, damn it. I think it's a PB. I think it's sub 250. I'm quite sure it might be sub 245. Yeah, I mean, how am I supposed to respond to this now, man? What? I think I dropped the F-bomb. This might be a run that I'm gonna... What the hell?
There are many impressive runs, and the Google Sheets document containing all of the runs will be in this video's description. I asked the runners the following question: if someone wanted to pick up a game or category to speedrun blindfolded, what advice would you give to them? This is what they had to say. First of all, pick a game that you enjoy casually or as a visual speedrun. It doesn't have to be an easy game, all that matters is the enjoyment of working out ways to make the game doable. Be creative with figuring out strategies that will work consistently, and spend a lot of time strategizing before doing serious practice or runs. Strategizing will be 75% of the time spent before the first run, and practice is 25%. Keep in mind that RNG and precision of timing might make a game very difficult, if not unviable. Therefore, it's good to check the hardest sections of the game first. I mentioned some of the misconceptions about blindfolded speedrunning earlier, and I will reiterate the last piece of advice they had to give. You don't need to be a speedrunner of a game or be an experienced player of the game to do blindfolded runs. Blindfolded runners create precise, easy to remember strategies. They are tested and then memorized and practiced to the point where muscle memory soon develops. You can think of learning a blindfolded run to learning a foreign language. If you study vocabulary and try to speak full sentences as early as possible, it will seem intimidating. However, you will notice a progress in fluency. The goal is to memorize strategies through practice. If all else fails, you can always reach out to the blindfolded community because there is always someone that can help. Their strategies are never a secret, and everything is made public. As for the last question, I asked the runners what would be the craziest blindfolded speedrun. Bubzia said the community often jokes about Blindfolded Tetris. A speedrun of this would not be possible because you cannot know which piece you have at any given moment. Memorizing a specific layout wouldn't be a problem, but you're never guaranteed to get the pieces for it in order. He stated the following: of course nothing is impossible, and if someone wants to grind 10 million attempts with a fixed pattern, then please, go ahead and astonish me. Katoon said that he would be truly amazed if someone were to finish a full run of Diddy Kong Racing blindfolded. Even winning a single race would be impressive. He also said that a totally different type of run that would be unique would be a variety of Tetris where the type of block is indicated by a sound cue. This would require not only fast reflexes, but crazy short-term memory, similar to blindfolded chess. If we're talking totally crazy rather than being amazed, he said any run over 24 hours that's optimized and complex in strategy would be impressive. He envisions lengthy categories of 3D adventure games, such as all shrines in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. This marks the end of the video, and I hope you all enjoyed. I want to give a big thank you to Bub Xia and Katoon for taking the time to contribute to this video. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up, as it helps me out a lot. Also be sure to subscribe to the channel for more speedrunning content, and click the bell for notifications for when I upload new videos. Anyways, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.